What's good, folks? It's your boy Jack, and welcome back to the Gift of Gab podcast. Now, if you're new to the channel, I'll fill you in on what we've been talking about here. So, in episode one, we talked about starting, right? Starting whatever passion, whatever dream, whatever business it is that God has given you the idea and vision for, right? And in episode two, we talked about staying faithful when the hype fades, because just like relationships, when you start something new, you have that honeymoon phase where everything is nice and sweet, and the flame is hot, right? You all you want to do is work. All you want to do is be around it. But in episode two, we wanted to focus on when that flame starts to die out a little bit, right? When that fire starts to die down, and you no longer have the same hype and you know will to go anymore. We talked about staying diligent and dedicated to the grind and the process when your body doesn't want to go, when your mind is not in it, right? So that was the focus of episode two. But now, for today's episode, I got to ask you this. What do you do when the biggest battle isn't around you? It isn't external, right? What do you do when the biggest battle is not person versus person, right? This conflict is not person versus nature. This conflict is inside of you. It's internal. It's person versus self, right? This episode is about fear, but not just fear from an external factor, right? We're talking about the inner voice, the voice that tells you you're not ready, the voice that says to you you're not good enough, the voice that whispers in your ear and tell you you're going to fail, so why even try? But by the power of Christ, the aim is to make sure we kill that voice and put it to rest by the end of this episode. Fear of failure equals a faith issue. If you worry about failure in the realm of something that God has placed in you, then you already have put God in a box, right? This way of thinking says that the power of God is limited to your imagination. Fear of failure is a symptom of a lack of faith. When you fear of failure doesn't just question your ability, it also questions your belief in what God said. Fear says, what if it doesn't work? But faith says, what if it does? Now, I want to give you a gem of truth, right? Here we are. Fear is loud when your faith is quiet, but faith grows louder when you start feeding it. 2 Timothy chapter 1 verse 7 says, "For God has not given us a spirit of fear, but of power and of love and of a sound mind." That means that fear is not from God. Fear is not of God. It's not from Him. And if it's not from Him, then why are we allowing fear to lead our decisions? Why are we allowing fear to keep us stagnant? I want to give you something. And it goes a little something like this. Talk back to your inner critic. Talk back to that voice that spreads doubt. Speak faith when it speaks doubt. You got to stop letting your inner critic be the loudest voice in the room. You hear me? Stop letting the inner critic be the loudest voice in the room. Stop letting the inner critic be louder than the voice of God. You hear me? You're not weak for having doubt, but you're at risk when you let doubt drive your passion. You're at risk when you allow fear to control your actions. When that voice starts up, talk back to it. The same way you would talk back to somebody that down talks you. Talk back to that voice within you the same way, right? You won't let anybody approach you in a manner that goes against what you stand for. So stand on business when it comes to that voice. Stand on it. When that voice comes in and say, "I'm not enough," right? Say to it, "But God's strength is made perfect in weakness." When that voice comes to you and say, "I don't have what it takes," say to it, "God equips who He calls." When that voice throws the question out there, "What if I fail?" Respond to that voice and say, "But what if obedience leads to breakthrough?" A power move, something very strategic I'm going to give you guys. Write down your biggest fear and respond to it with scripture. And every time that voice pops up with that same fear, if anything of that nature, if any statement of any kind, but it's of the nature of that fear that you wrote down, respond to it with that scripture that you wrote down. Keep combating it with that scripture and watch what happens. Watch how it changes everything. Now, I want to get into a little something, right? Because we feel that we have to have it all together. We feel that we have to be overqualified when we get called. And that's not the case. God has been in the business of calling people who are unqualified, to use them for his purpose, right? God has used people who were unqualified. He's been using them. People who felt they weren't good enough, right? Even us, sometimes we feel like we aren't worthy of the purpose of the gift that God has given us. But I'm going to give you examples, like biblical examples of people who thought the same thing, but were called and were used anyway. Moses, for example. Moses didn't feel qualified to be the mouthpiece of God because of his struggle to speak with eloquence, right? God said, I'll speak through you. Gideon is another example. Gideon considered himself to be the least of his family and to come from a tribe, a weak tribe, but God called him to be a mighty warrior. Jeremiah is my last and final example. Jeremiah was called to be a prophet, and he felt he was too young. And he said to God, I'm too young. God said to him, don't say, I am too young. You must go to everyone I send you to. So understand that God ain't just start choosing people when he made you. He's been in the business of handpicking the unqualified. Romans chapter 2 and 11 says, for there is no respect of persons with God. In other words, in layman's terms, I'm going to break it down for you. God has no favoritism. He will use anybody. Homeless, millionaire, whatever it is, whatever walk of life you come from, whatever skill you have, unskilled, if you possess a lot of intangibles, if you have a lot of tangible things, it does not matter. He does not look at that, right? He chooses according to his way of seeing things. So understand, you do not have to have it all together, right? God doesn't call the qualified. He qualifies the call. He does not need your perfection. He needs your yes. Obedience is louder than confidence. Just say yes. Even if your voice is shaking, even if you're spooked, just say yes. Just walk. Be bold and walk. Take a leap of faith and walk. Just go. Stop thinking that you got to have it all together. God knows what you have to offer. He knew before he picked you and was well aware when he picked you. All he needs is your yes and for you to show up so he can show out. That's all you got to do. So going forward, I'm going to get a little practical here, right? Because there have to be some tactful skills we have to put in place in order, or I want to say that we have to be tactical with how we approach certain things, especially when it comes to things of the spirit. So I want to give you some ways to build your faith, right? In a very practical sense. Step number one is speak faith daily. Start your day with scripture and declarations. Decree and declare what it is you want to see, right? For an example, what I mean by that is you can start by saying, today I walk in faith, not fear. God has not left me unequipped. Step two, surround yourself with kingdom voices. Get around people who pour truth into you and not doubt, right? It is imperative that you have a circle of people who are walking the same walk as you and who speak the same language. This is imperative. Why? Because iron sharpens iron, right? Birds of a feather flock together. It also says, I've heard quotes saying that if you hang around 7 millionaires, you're likely to become the eighth. So hang around people who are going in the same direction as you, right? Proverbs chapter 27, verse 17 says, as iron sharpens iron, so one person sharpens another. Step three, take small acts of obedience. Don't wait for full clarity. Obey what God has shown you today. Follow through with the given instructions. One thing about faith is it can be very uncomfortable. You'll find yourself in some strange and peculiar situations. And here's the thing, you can't have a testimony without some form of a test, right? There's no testimony without a test. So grow comfortable with being uncomfortable. Really fall back and just trust God. Trust in him to deliver you from whatever it is. Understand he won't put you in a place where he hasn't already made provisions. Just trust him. My last and final step, reflect on past victories. Look back on what he's already done. Look back at what he's already brought you through. Remind yourself that If he's won before, he will win again. God does not lose. He's undefeated. He's a winning God. So walk in victory. Look back at his resume. Remind yourself that if he's done it before, he'll do it again and again and again and again. Right? He's unchanging. He does not lose. So I say, feed your faith, starve your fear. Feed your faith, starve your fear. Feed your faith, starve your fear. In closing, I just want to say God has already factored in your flaws. When he called you, understand that. He had already factored in your flaws when he called you. You're not disqualified because you doubt, but you are delayed when you let fear be your master. So with that said, you don't need to feel ready. You just need to be willing to go. All right? My last scripture for you is Joshua chapter 1 verse 9. Be strong and courageous. Do not be afraid. Do not be discouraged, for the Lord your God will be with you wherever you go. Okay? Stay faithful, stay focused, and stay dangerous until next time. God fam, God bless. If you like today's video and it's hit home for you in one way or another, like, share, comment, subscribe. Don't be afraid. Get the word out. Somebody may need this. Thank you. Love.